Hello again. The big finale. We are going to end our book today. I'm going to talk to you about the last 4 pages of your book. I hope you're as excited as I am. Let me tell you, when I finally finished my book, I felt such a sense of accomplishment, and I hope you're feeling this way too. Plus, I feel like you've learned so incredibly much. Now, today I'm going to be talking to you about some things that might be new to you, but also might be a reminder. Some of you already know this stuff because you are animal experts. And let's get into it. All right, so let me share my screen with my PowerPoint. I'm starting on page 29, which is a food web. So let me get to the correct slide. There's our metamorphosis that we talked about. Food web, and there's your YouTube link right there. Now, this is a picture I took out of a book that I've shared with you several times, Sciencesaurus. But I want you to notice the arrows. The arrows are one of the most important parts of understanding a food web, because the arrow is going from an item into the thing that is going to receive the energy from that item. So you notice that the grasshopper has arrows going from and to the grasshopper. So the arrow is going from the grasshopper into, from the grass into the grasshopper. That's because the grasshopper is going to eat that grass and gain all of the energy from that grass. But when the bird eats the grasshopper, then the grasshopper gives his energy to the bird. Probably not willingly, but nevertheless. Same for the shrew. The grasshopper gives its energy to the shrew. And then the shrew gives its energy to the owl. The bird gives its energy to the owl. You'll notice nothing eats the owl. Well, when the owl dies, it degrades and gives its energy to the decomposers. We'll talk more about that later. So now let me show you the page that I drew, where I basically just copied this. So I just rewrote it on page 29, straight from the previous slide. My arrows look a little bit different, but the main thing is you understand that energy is being transferred here in the food web. All the animals are connected. This is the part of our world where we have to understand, if you take one of these things out of the world, if we kill all the grasshoppers because they're so annoying, we have taken a link out of the food web. We have messed it up. Now the birds have nothing to eat, the shrews have nothing to eat, which in turn kills the owls, which in turn kills the foxes. It's just all such a big cycle, and everything is designed with perfection. We just have to leave it alone. And I'm not saying you're an evil person if you killed a grasshopper. I'm saying our world depends on grasshoppers, because grasshoppers are a part of our whole entire food web. All right, so the food web shows how energy is transferred from one creature to another, usually by being eaten. Your arrows give the direction of the energy. Next, food chain, which is different from a food web. There's your website, your YouTube link to watch about the food chain. Now, food chain is things that kind of go in order. And this is just a picture that I got off the internet to show you, to give you an idea, but I've got another one I'm going to show you and discuss with you. So let me move on. So let's talk about the primary consumers and the herbivores. These guys only eat plants. They only eat plants. And plants are classified as producers in a food chain. So plants are they're in a chain, you don't really have, it makes full circle. I'm gonna go back to this other slide for a second. It makes a full circle. So there's really, in a circle, there's really not a beginning and not an end. So if you have to pick the beginning first to discuss, we're gonna start with producers. And I see that we skipped that slide, so it's a good thing we went back. Producers are anything that are also called autotrophy. And that means they use energy to make food. Producers are the only things on the whole planet that make their own food. And those are all of our plants. Okay? They get their energy from the sun. They don't eat anything to gain energy. All right, now, primary consumers are herbivores. They only eat the producers. They eat the plants. So there you have your grasshoppers and those cute little cows. So I've drawn in my, on page 30, I turned my book sideways, and you are looking at the inside corner of my book. So I drew some producers. I have grass and trees, and they are giving their energy to the primary consumers. That's why my arrow is going that direction. Okay, they're giving the energy to the primary consumers, which are called herbivores, which only eat plants. So I drew a cow, a deer, and a bunny rabbit. You can draw whatever you'd like. And then what eats the cow and the deer and the bunny rabbit? That's really our next question. Well, those are secondary consumers, and they are called carnivores. They only eat meat. So there's a fox with a little mouse in his mouth. And I really love this picture of this crane, this herring, because he's eating a fish. But if you look closely, the fish is eating a fish. Isn't that cool? I like that picture. That doesn't come along every day for a photographer. So this is my picture of my secondary consumers. I have my evil attempt at drawing a wolf and a lion. These guys only eat meat. So they eat primary consumers, and they are called secondary consumers. They only eat meat. Here are some tertiary consumers. Tertiary is the fancy word for third. We've had primary, secondary, and now we have tertiary. Now, I was a little confused by this slide, and I'll explain that for a minute. It says some animals are classified as tertiary because they only eat secondary, but they do not eat plants. Okay, so tertiary is supposed to be, I'm going to go and come back to this in a minute. Tertiary is supposed to be for omnivores. Omnivores are you and me, coons, bears. We eat plants and meat. We like it all. But since these particular animals only eat meat, they cannot be secondary consumers. When I say these animals, I'm talking about these guys. Your cheetah, your eagle, and your great white. They do not eat primary consumers. They do not eat rabbits and things like that. They only eat meat. So why are they considered tertiary? Well, because they are the big boys. They are at the top of the food chain. They really do not have predators other than man. But tertiaries are actually classified as omnivores that eat secondary consumers, primary consumers, and producers, and we even eat decomposers. I don't know about you, but mushrooms are one of my very, very, very favorite foods to eat. I eat a lot of mushrooms in my life. So there's my awful attempt at drawing a bear and a person. Underneath my secondary consumers, my omnivores, they eat plants and animals. You could draw your great white there. That's fine with me because they are classified as tertiary consumers only because they eat only secondary consumers. I know that primary consumers are also classified as meat, but sharks don't prefer to eat those. They prefer to eat secondary consumers. All right, let's move on to decomposers. Okay, this is my, hold on, went too far. Let me get this. Maybe I didn't include that video. Let me bring your attention to this part right here where it says decomposers, bacteria, and fungi. They break down organic matter. So I've drawn worms under the dirt, and I drew mushrooms coming up out of the top. And you need to understand that these are the creatures. This is the part of the chain that feeds the producers. If we didn't have worms and mushrooms and other kind of bacteria and fungus to break down the dead bodies when they pass on of the other consumers, then we would not have any nutrition for the producers. And if you take away the producers, you take a major link out of the chain and the chain is broken. And that's why we have always talked about if the sun quit shining, we would quit having plants. And if you quit having plants, everything else will die. You stop the water cycle. You stop the plant cycle. It would be a big hot mess. All right. Let's move on to animal instincts. Now we have 4 different animal instincts. You can see I have them set up on this page right here. So you're gonna put your title, and then you're gonna divide what's left of the page into 4 quarters. So let's start with migration. Let's have a conversation about migration. Migration is when animals move from one place to another to survive, and they do this seasonally every year. So I've drawn you a little map that I found pieces of, and I kind of pieced it all together. Geese come from Canada. Certain geese come from Canada. They summer there and they winter in Mexico. Monarch butterflies, they spend some time in Maine and some time in California. They fly straight across the U.S. Bats, some fly from the southwest area to Mexico for the winter. Sea turtles, they swim from Africa to Navarre to have lay their eggs, and then they're done. So let's look at some more examples. Here's our butterflies. I know these are not monarchs, but I just love this picture. I thought it was great. So just think butterfly in general. Some of them migrate. Here's some geese. These are actually snow geese. And I believe maybe they're blue. Maybe these are blues. I'm not really sure. I'll have to ask my husband. And then this is a sea turtle. These all migrate. All these kinds of animals migrate. Oh, and I believe that, let me see where the YouTube link is. Right there. It's hard to see. I could not change the color of the font. I don't know why. All right, let's move on to hibernation. There's your YouTube link right there. Hibernation is when an animal goes into deep sleep-like state that allows the animal to survive freezing in the winter. So I drew a cave. I did not draw a sleeping animal, but you can see the Z's coming out. I drew a little cave because a lot of times bears are known to hibernate in caves. Also, squirrels hibernate, bats, woodchucks. There's lots of animals that hibernate. I got you a picture right here. So there's your squirrels, your bats, your woodchucks, and the big Mr. Grizz. I love feral pictures. Those are awesome photographs. All right, the next one for your animal instinct is called mimicry. And there's your YouTube link, mimicry. Let's talk about that for a minute. Snakes that mimic other snakes. All right, so this is an example. This snake, the king snake, is not poisonous, but he looks so much like this snake that people get them confused. I know I would if I was walking along and saw them. I would panic and say, is that a king snake or a coral snake? I can't remember. Now, when it says harmless, you will be hurting. You could get an infection from a bite from a king snake, but you will not get venom. And venom is, of course, deadly. So if the black is touching the red, you will not die. If the black is touching yellow, it kills a fellow. That's kind of how you have to remember it. But he's mimicking this other guy so that people will, not people, but other creatures will not mess with him. That's why he was born to look similar. Let's look at another one. So all of these butterflies look something like the monarch. This is the only monarch in the bunch. And all of these others look so similar. I'm sure I've seen a lot of these in my life and just not realized it. But they are mimicking another creature, most likely for survival. Now the next next instinct is camouflage. So here's your YouTube link. And camouflage, whew, that's important for a lot of animals. Polar bears are camoed. Clownfish are camoed. This little insect is camoed, and so is this frog. In my little book, I drew a camouflaged picture there. That's a little creature hiding. I also drew this flounder. Flounder looked like sand. Just had the little eyeball sticking up. So here's the mimicry box. I think I left that slide out, but it's just the butterfly and the viceroy butterfly and the king snake and the coral snake, just like we discussed on the slides. That's page 31. You'll need to draw that on page 31. Now let's talk about, oh, there's a food web in the wrong place. More food web. I'll take those out before I send it to you. The last page is your evaluation part. I want you to write this word for word, but I don't want you to leave any blanks. I want you to fill in the blanks. I want to know what was your favorite part of this project and this little book. I want to know what would you do if you had more pages, and I want you to explain how you're going to use any of this information in the job that you hope to have one day. And then I did leave you some blank lines so that you can add your own thoughts. And I really hope that you enjoyed this book. Now, I know that I talked to one student and he was like, I wish I'd done more about insects. And so I encouraged him to use the back cover of the book to do a page about insects. You can do whatever you'd like with the inside and the back of the cover. And so that you can make this book be what you wanted it to be. But save this book for your portfolio when you are finished, after you show it to me. So show it to me, send me your pages when you're finished so that I can grade them and give you credit, but save this little book. It's really a handy little resource for you. All right, I hope you've enjoyed your mini life science book and that you are happy with everything that we learned in that. And I look forward to your comments about how to make it better and how to improve the little book for next year. And I will take your suggestions and incorporate them. And I appreciate you more than you know. Thanks.